Hello and welcome to the HIPAA Insider Show. Today we are going to be talking about helping healthcare providers navigate the world of e-commerce. As more clinics and practices sell online, from medical supplies to supplements, choosing the right platform is critical. So if you are building a shop to sell medical supplies or supplements or anything of that nature, stay tuned and we'll drill down into two main tools that you can use, WooCommerce and Shopify. Joining me to talk about e-commerce for healthcare is Gil Vidals. Hey Gil, how's it going?
I'm doing great. This is an interesting topic. I'm looking forward to cover the e-commerce side of PHI and HIPAA.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll pull up the comparison screen here shortly, but anything to kick us off, introduce the topic a little bit more?
Yeah, I just want to mention that when it comes to e-commerce, it's not quite obvious if something should be falling under the HIPAA regulations, because if you have a website that has patient information, that's more obvious. But e-commerce, people think of, well, I'm just ordering goods, medical devices. What does that have to do with protected health information? So that'll be interesting to discuss that part of it.
Absolutely, yeah. So as I said, we're going to be talking about two leaders in the e-commerce space, WooCommerce and Shopify. Shopify is probably the more well-known plan, would you say, Gil?
I don't have any stats, Adam, on which one has more users. They're both very popular, and Shopify, I think, probably does more advertising. So maybe that gives us the impression that one is more popular, but I really don't know the numbers behind it.
Yeah, I can pull those up pretty quickly. Let's see. Top e-commerce platforms. Yeah, it's actually closer than I thought. It's looks like 2025 insights. 4.65 million Shopify users versus 3.56 million WooCommerce users.
Yeah, so I think WooCommerce is
Shopify ahead by 1 million.
Right. Shopify is pretty expensive because I hear, my understanding is they take quite a bit of cut from the transaction, and so you end up paying a hefty fee, whereas WooCommerce is a relatively small fixed fee to buy the plugin. They don't do it by transaction, as far as I know. Now we're in this video here. We're not really trying to sell either one of these. Full disclosure: we don't have any what do they call that? Any horse in this race. I mean, we don't get paid by any one of these companies a commission or anything. So we're trying to be pretty impartial. However, having said that, we do offer our services for people that have WordPress and WooCommerce. We help them keep that secure and keep it HIPAA compliant. Shopify, we can't do that because Shopify is a SaaS tool. In other words, a platform that you log into. We don't control that or have anything to do with it.
Right. Could you talk a little bit about that? Because here on the table that we're sharing, when it comes to HIPAA compliance, it says HIPAA compliance is achievable with careful selection of HIPAA compliant hosting, plugins, and BAAs with all vendors for WooCommerce. Yeah. But Shopify, it just says does not offer a BAA. So what's the implication that it does not offer a BAA?
Yeah, so let me explain that. This is really important for the audience to understand this. So Shopify is a platform that you can log into and add your goods and services to. It's not something that you could buy and put it wherever you want on the web and manipulate it and change it, make it better. Whereas WooCommerce is a plugin to WordPress. That means you can install WooCommerce on any WordPress site wherever you want. In other words, you have more control over WooCommerce. Therefore, you can make it HIPAA compliant. So what does that mean at a high level? That means WooCommerce and WordPress could become HIPAA compliant if you know how to do that. Whereas Shopify, you don't have that option because Shopify is the only place that you can buy Shopify. You can't manipulate it. You can't protect it. You can't do anything with it other than add your products and services. And they claim on their site that they're not HIPAA compliant. They won't sign a BAA. They really won't They won't do that. And that's okay. It's not really a criticism. It's just that that's not the market that they are playing in. They're not interested in serving the HIPAA side of things.
Okay. So it's not to say that you couldn't use Shopify if, for example, you were just maybe selling like, merch. So let's say, you're a medical entity and you wanted to sell t-shirts or something, but maybe towards a charity kind of drive or something like that. You could probably use Shopify. However, I get the feeling, Gil, that you probably wouldn't be wanting to pay too much money for, an e-commerce platform if there wasn't a good revenue model built into your online store. Do you agree?
Well, I mean, Shopify, again, this is something that for this talk that we're doing here, we're more interested in the HIPAA aspects. If you get into the business analysis, I don't have the statistics and the numbers, but I could tell you from what I recall, Shopify is going to take a pound of flesh. They're going to take a decent amount of cut, whereas WooCommerce won't take that. But in terms of,
I think the starting plans are like $100 a month, and then upwards for Shopify. Plus, like you said, the percentage on transaction fees there as well. Whereas WooCommerce is free at the subscription level. You're just going to pay for the hosting, and then there is a payment processing fee depending on what processor you choose.
Yeah, I don't remember the cost for WooCommerce, but I think they're more static. They're not based on a percentage of the transactions, and that's always better because a static price, you're done.
Yeah, cents per order or something like that, rather than percent of the order. Yeah.
Right. Well, let's look at WooCommerce, and in general, though, Adam, I think it'd be good to talk about what constitutes PHI when it comes to e-commerce. So let's give an example right away. Let's say that you're selling medical devices for like an insulin pump versus another client, another company. Let's say they're selling bandages.
Okay.
So let's just talk that through. So let's say you're selling bandages. They arrive at someone's house, Mr. Smith in Georgia. And let's say somebody hacked into the commerce and they said, hey, we now know that, Acme sold these bandages to Mr. Smith in Georgia. So that's a worst case scenario, right? Somebody got that information. The question is that PHI data? Is that protected health information? What are your thoughts on that, Adam?
I would say if I'm just buying bandages, I wouldn't consider that really as patient information. Just
why not?
Emotionally, instinctually, I wouldn't.
Okay, and that's probably because if somebody buys the bandage, what does that mean in terms of a disease? Well, you buy bandages because you cut your finger on a piece of glass at home and you need to put bandages. That's not a disease. However, if somebody's buying a medical pump for insulin, an insulin pump, you can infer that person probably has diabetes.
Yeah.
So you can connect the dots. So now you're getting warmer to like, wait a minute, this protected health information. Now, having said that, just because some guy orders an insulin pump that arrives at his home in Georgia, you don't know if that's for him or his wife or his neighbor or for his granddaughter. I mean, you really don't know. So it's kind of a little bit on the loose side, but having said that, this is a litigious society we live in. You don't want to be risking things if you're a medical device provider that you can infer what disease they have. I would say you're going to definitely want to be in the PHI camp and really protect that information. So I think that's pretty obvious to the audience. We don't have to be attorneys to figure it out. And again, we're not giving legal advice. We're just sharing our opinions, our comments. Yeah, so it's pretty common sense. But let's say that you are just selling bandages or something like an elbow, what do they call those compression sleeves that people wear when they go work out in the gym?
Yeah.
That kind of a thing. Yeah, you're probably pretty safe if you say, I don't want to pay the extra fees to make my whole shopping experience HIPAA compliant. I'm going to take a chance and just sell that because a compression elbow sleeve you use for working out could be used for someone that has arthritis potentially, but it also could be used for someone who goes to the gym and they want a little extra elbow support when they're doing military press.
Yeah.
That's not a disease. That's just a guy who's going to the gym. So I would say err on the side of caution if you are selling medical devices that can be associated with the disease and a name. So you're associating the personal information, the name, address, with the medical device that's used to handle a particular disease. Now you put all that bundle together, and you could make a good argument that that is PHI, protected health information.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to WooCommerce, what goes into, so let's say I've got the website, I've made the judgment that I'm closer to the insulin pump specific kind of potentially patient information in the orders. What should I do to make sure that the e-commerce site is secure and HIPAA compliant?
Yeah, that's really the big question, right? So what makes WooCommerce HIPAA compliant when it's on this particular server? And then you compare it to the same WooCommerce installation, but on a different server. This one's HIPAA compliant, and this one's not. So just to be clear to the audience, you have to put effort and energy into a WooCommerce site to make it HIPAA compliant. It doesn't come that way just out of the box. When you open it up, it's not HIPAA compliant. So part of what makes it HIPAA compliant is that WooCommerce is a plugin that goes into WordPress. So that means the WordPress itself has to be HIPAA compliant. That's your first step.
And WordPress is the general website management system.
That's the CMS, the content management system, where you have all your content. So that needs to be HIPAA compliant. So if you know that your site, your WordPress site is hosted in GoDaddy or in Bluehost, for example, where they say on their own site, this is not my idea, they post on their own website, they say, we do not host HIPAA compliant applications, period. So if you're hosting at one of those places that advertises that and says we're not HIPAA compliant, then you know no matter what you do, it's not going to be HIPAA compliant. And they won't sign a BAA, and that already is a problem, just like Shopify won't sign it. So that's your first clue that your WooCommerce will not be HIPAA compliant if you install it in one of those places that doesn't support a HIPAA compliant environment. So the first step is you got to find a provider that will say, hey, we'll sign the BAA. And then on top of that, we'll make sure and lock down your website. We'll adhere to all the security best practices. We'll make sure your WordPress is HIPAA compliant, that you have two-factor authentication on that sends a second passphrase or 6-digit code to your phone, et cetera. Lots of other things, lots of details there. But the bottom line is you need somebody, a provider that will do that for you. So I would say that's how to look at it. That's how to determine if your WooCommerce is going to be HIPAA compliant.
Okay, fantastic. Well, I think that's a good amount of information to share for this video. Gil, anything that you think we might have missed before we wrap up?
Well, I would like to say that e-commerce is very, very important. A lot of small businesses have e-commerce. And I think it's something that you need to consider if you are selling anything that could be construed as a medical device, anything that is for helping improving the body, things like hearing aids, elbow compression sleeves, all those kind of things. You need to ask yourself, is that something that I should think about, and potentially making sure that I have that in a HIPAA compliant environment. And at HIPAA Vault, we obviously, that's our specialty. We help people do that. So you could always reach out to Adam or myself, and we can jump on a call and answer more specific questions if you have.
Yeah, fantastic. And if you don't want to reach out directly to us, feel free to leave us a question in the comments below. And while you're at it, give us a like and a subscribe to the video here, and check out more of our content. We're aiming to deliver about one of these a week. We've been doing that consistently for a while, but we really appreciate your support and subscription to the channel. Okay, and that's it for this episode. Thanks for stopping.